Well, I'm not sure how much that helped. We'll see. So I've got my first cup of tea, and I've got my first set of miniature cupcakes. And I'm going to do some more audio programming on the sample game. Someone's asking a question. Is implementing spherical harmonics hard? It's not that hard if you know math. You are especially comfortable with spherical math, which is a little bit, tends to be a little bit hairier in terms of what the equations look like than straight up Euclidean space linear algebra. But it's not that bad if you get into it. Of course, making spherical harmonics fast is a whole other problem. Making them accurate with a small number of terms is a whole other problem. Okay, so anyway, those of you who were with me last time saw that I had added some sound to this game, and I'm going to play it for a little bit so that I can bask in the sound. Because it's nice, because this has been going for a year without sound. Hopefully this is audible. Where's the last guys? Come on. Oh, I was trying not to get the pickup. Anyway, so that's where we're at. You know, it's playing music. It's playing like looping sounds for the shields. It's playing non-looping sounds for shots and all that stuff. So that's like the very basic level of functionality. But then the next level up, so for example, here I'm loading all these files, and you notice this song, I'm just loading one song, right? And it's 48 megabytes, because it's a WAV file, it's uncompressed. So one of the first things you want to do in a game is like, okay, let's compress those sounds, but you don't want to compress them and then uncompress them on load, because then you take just as much memory, right? You want to play the sound compressed and just sort of stream it as you go. And I have a system for doing that I've used in games like Braid and The Witness, and I've modified it over the years. And I wanted to today sort of port that over to this new programming language. The sound that was being played already is from the base version of the same mixer that we have in The Witness. I just ported all that to the new language, but I commented out some of the stuff that has to do with, you know, compressed sound effects. So I want to try and put OGG files in today, and I was going to do it using the official lib Vorbis and lib OGG, but someone mentioned to me that STB OGG now supports seeking, so I think that I would rather try to do that, because I'm trying to keep dependencies small and simple, and trying to manage, like, just to play an OGG file is like 3 DLLs, and as I was complaining about on Twitter a minute ago, you know, if you're going to version them, you can't even just compile the project files they give you. You have to like edit it all, and then of course next time they release an update, you have to re-edit everything. It's a pain in the ass, right? So I don't want to drag any of that legacy configuration headache from C++ with me, right? The whole point of this system is to be clean and nice and not bog you down in that kind of bullshit issue. So I want to at least start by avoiding that kind of stuff as much as I can. And so I'm going to do stbOGG, which will be cool because I've never used stbOGG even in C++. So I'm going to do an example of just pulling that into the language, you know, linking to it. I'm going to have to do a new feature about how to specify external libraries, because previously I sort of had hacks in to load DLLs for external libraries, but I'll make that more formal today, hopefully. This is my idea of what's going to happen today, and then we'll see how much of this actually happens. I'm going to turn on some lights. If anyone has any questions about what I'm saying, I could answer those. I feel like today is going to be a serious miniature cupcake day, so I got the rest of the box. Oh, I don't see any real questions. Will I implement audio positioning? You know, if you direct the questions straight at me with like the @ or whatever in Twitch, I'll be more likely to see them, because sometimes things get lost in the scroll back otherwise. We already have audio panning. In fact, because I pulled over the audio mixer from the witness, we do 8.1 positional panning and stuff. However, right, I currently don't have any 3D code on the client side using that. So for this game, that mixing is essentially not being used. Like not even to stereo speakers or headphones yet. We're just playing stuff pre-mixed effectively. But the mixer should, in theory, do all that stuff up to 8.1 if I didn't make mistakes, you know, transcribing the code. And to the extent that I did, then hopefully those mistakes are easily fixable. How am I doing? I'm having a pretty good day. I don't know, we'll see. We're starting to go into serious time on getting the witness done. And I feel like I have too much to do before it comes out, but I had a really good day yesterday where I got a lot done. Of course, I've also got many lists of like things that I don't want to show the lists because someone will see something scary on those that's a spoiler. But anyway, I've got to-do lists out the ass. But yesterday I cranked through a bunch of things and that made me feel good. How do you code when eating sweet stuff? I find that if I think too hard and do too many things, I need sugar to keep the brain going. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's just that I have a sugar addiction or something. But I find that I perform better when I have sweet things to eat. When I'm doing serious, on just a regular day, if I'm not cranking, it's probably fine. Am I going to post stuff about the witnesses tech? We have already made some postings on the blog about tech, and you could find those. Let me see. If I go to the blog and I go to, we have them by subject, engine tech, right? It's been a while since we did one, but we have one about DirectX 11. We have one about transcribing between shader languages, irradiance caching for generating shadow maps. Casey had a bunch of good Witness Wednesdays on different topics. There's a bunch of stuff there if you would like to read it. None of it lately because toward the end of development, you're not really doing new tech that often, right? You're just getting things done. So what do I like about the Vive wands? They track perfectly, right? Let me go grab one so you know what I'm talking about. I don't have streaming set up from that computer, so you can't really see me use them, but keep in mind this is not a consumer version of it. This is a developer version of it, so it's ugly and clunky, but anyway, it's like this handheld thing. Let me make sure I've got that in the shot. Yeah, so it's like this handheld thing, and it's got, you can see it's got all these sensors on it, the same ones that track the HMD, right? And what that means is like, it tracks as well and as accurately as the HMD. So you can use it, you know, if I've got the headset on and I can't see anything, someone can come up and just hand this to me or just hold it up and I can reach out and grab it because the tracking is so good that I know exactly where that thing is in space in the virtual world. Someone could toss it to you, right? And you could just catch it. It's really kind of amazing. And so I would be excited by just making a game that uses a controller that tracks that well. Like it's exactly what the Wiimote should have been, you know, when the Wii launched originally. You know, they sort of marketed that as like, oh, it's these hand nunchuck things where the computer tracks them, but realistically, the Wii, it was just a few accelerometers, and you couldn't do very good things with that. Whereas these are amazing. So, and now again, disclaimer, I haven't used the Oculus ones. People are telling me the Oculus ones track just as well. I don't know that for sure, and I'm not sure I believe it because often, I find that my standards are different from other people's, but maybe the Oculus ones are just as good. I don't know. If they are, then we're in for a good time with this coming year, I think. Yeah, I'm using a standing desk right now. I have a desk that goes up and down, so like it's going down right now on a little motor, and now it's coming back up. And I just use that to give myself some variation. At the end of yesterday, it was up, and so when I came into stream today, I'm just leaving it up. But we might go down later if we want to. Yeah, I don't think you want to actually catch the controllers because you stand a chance of dropping them and and breaking them. But you could, you seriously could. It tracks so well that would just work. What are my thoughts on the Demon Souls and Dark Souls games? I haven't played them very much. I mean, I appreciate certain things about them, like the fact that they don't handhold you and you're supposed to work hard and all that. Like, I like that kind of thing. But that style of game just doesn't totally call to me, so it's not my bag. I've played them all. I played Demon Souls for a few hours. I probably played Dark Souls for like 1 hour. I played Bloodborne for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. And I felt like I'd gotten enough out of those games each time. How seriously did I consider using the wrist straps? Not very seriously at all. Okay, let's find GitHub S2B Vorbis. So my friend Sean does a lot of really cool libraries that are all meant to be very minimal in terms of how easy they are to incorporate into your code. And so he did one quite some time back for Vorbis, which is an audio compression format. And usually they're just one file libraries. And it looks to me like this is the same. I mean, it looks to me like I can just grab this file and compile it. So I'm just going to even do that without reading instructions or anything, because that's the goal of these. And so that's the way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to go into here, modules, and I'm going to make stb vorbis.c. I'm going to paste in. I thought I'd copied that. Emacs is slow. Okay, I pasted in. It's 5,000 lines. That's why. So I just pasted in that file. All right. I've got basically a supercomputer here compared to standards of when I started in games, and it took 5 seconds, I don't know, several seconds to paste a 5,000 line file. That's embarrassing, Emacs. That's why I'm going to get off Emacs as soon as I have time to make my own editor. Anyway. So now I already have one other STB library. So in this same modules folder, which is where I build all the external libraries, I have this make DLL's batch file, and I've just got some lines for each one of these. And I'm already using STB image to load image files. So I'm just going to copy that command line, and I'm going to do stb vorbis. I guess I'll do it as .cpp. Yeah. All right, so just for consistency, just so that I compile everything with the same compiler and all that. So I'm going to go into modules, delete that file that I just made, add to Subversion, right? And let's see what happens if I just try to compile it. Hey, look. Oops. it actually compiled it, but it saved it to the wrong name because I didn't change this. But look, that is how awesome that is I just pasted this into my own file and compiled it, and it appears to have compiled correctly, which is how all reusable code should be, but how basically none in the world is, especially if it's a frickin' open source library. I would have been downloading dependencies for like a day and just trying to get my dependencies worked out. So thank you, Sean. We'll see. We'll see if all this works very well. In fact, I don't remember what I did to STB image. I don't remember if I had to, I don't do DLLs on Windows very often. So like, what did I do to make things, did I put these exports in? Or did Sean put these exports in? I think I probably did. I probably put this export in front of functions that I wanted to appear in the DLL. There's probably a better way to do this now, like with def files or something, but like I hate stupid compiler configuration annoying things, so I really should probably learn that. But I knew it at one point. But for now, I'm just going to hack it. So let me see. STB, oh wait, export. Yeah, it really looks like this is a thing that I pasted. So you guys are going to see the whole dirty process of how you get a C++ library into a new language, which is interesting. All right, so basically, I'm going to look for the functions that I'm going to want to call, and I'm just going to paste export in front of them. If I were more organized and you knew how to use def files or whatever you use to control exports from DLLs, you would instead be listing these, in the export file. Either way, so what do I need to call? Well, maybe that. Maybe all these. And again, this is, this is just a hack to get it working. And at some point, I'll probably do this in a more right way. So what's this push data API? Get blocks of data from any source and hand them to STP Vorbis. You have to buffer them. That sounds like what I want. We could also open from a file, but for a game that you're shipping to someone, you may not have your music in individual files, right? It might be packed into a bigger package file because that helps you optimize seeks from disk and all kinds of things. So I'm just going to paste that. I don't know. That seems more complicated, so we'll probably start with the pull data. Yeah, like he has an API here where you just pass the file name. So we'll probably start with that, and then once that works, we'll move to push data. Although actually, no, he has open memory, okay? That's actually what we're going to use. Wow, he has a lot of options. All right. Sean's done a lot of work on this. All right, so all that we really need is enough functions to get us started, and then we can, once I realize that I need to call something that I haven't exported, I'll go export it later. Okay, so yeah, let me make sure that we actually did get something. So I can use this utility dump in. So I'm going to dump in exports. STB Vorbis.dll. So look, we're exporting a bunch of functions now with all these dumb C++ mangled names. Oh, I might have to. Do I have to like extern C those or something? What did I do? STB image. Oh, it's also. Oh, that's not a mangle. Never mind. That's some kind of description of where it's stored. There's probably some table plus offset. I don't know what I'm doing when I use dump bin, honestly. Okay, so that's all cool. And now I'm gonna have I feel like I earned a bite of a cupcake, right? That's a concrete step. Oh, let me add the DLL. Vorbis.dll. Now I've earned a bite of a cupcake because that is a concrete step that takes me closer to being done. Okay. So now, here's the thing. Let me show you what, so I mentioned that I was already using STB image, but I was doing it with kind of a dirty hack. So let me show you what I've been the dirty hack that I've been doing, and I'm going to take out the dirty hack, show you that I can't compile that demo game anymore, and then we will do it the right way. So where is this? So for every operating system, which right now is only Windows and Linux, I have this operating specific implementation details file, which is mostly about just how to run the compiler because we use C compilers on the back end still. Eventually we'll have our own code generation, but for now we generate C and we have someone else compile the C. And how you want to do that depends on the particular file. So here's the thing. Or not on the particular file, but on the particular operating system, which is why it's here. So now you can see here that I've got this hard-coded make lib string that sort of knows about these different libraries that I might want to link and then what to do, and that's very suspicious, right? So, you know, like, hey, I have this do link equals true. If that's set to true, what it does is it looks for a DLL with the same name as, you know, this string that came in, right? And then if it happens to be the mixer, we want to link the dsound lib, not a lib called mixer win32 because that doesn't exist, right? So this is a kind of a hacky piece of crap temporary function. It's been in the code for the whole life of the compiler so far, but it's going to go away today, or at least it's going to get all this special case stuff simplified out. What we're going to do is we're just going to make a compiler directive that tells you that you need to load a DLL, right? And I'm thinking, you know, if, so let's, like I said, STB image, well, let me just show what happens. Let's comment out this STB image thing, and we'll rebuild the compiler, right? So that's all. Look how long it's taking to just rebuild that one change. It's ridiculous. That's why I'm making a language. Okay, somewhere up, oh, so I've got to go back to this folder. And so now I'm going to compile the game again. And now it can't finish compiling because it can't resolve STBI PNG load, which is an STB image function, right? Trying to load PNG files to load our textures for the aliens in the ship and stuff. And we can't do it anymore because the compiler didn't recognize that library and force it to link stbimage.dll. So what we want to do instead is I want to go into the module, right, for stbimage, right? And so far it's very simple. It's just a function prototype for this one function that I'm calling, right? And I'll explain to you where this came from when we do the Vorbis versions, right? But this basically just describes what we need to do in order to call out to that C function. So here I'm going to make a new directive. I'm going to call it, we already have foreign for foreign functions. So I'm going to say foreign link, maybe lib. Lib is an abbreviation. I don't like using abbreviations usually, although I do them sometimes. I have this abbreviation, no ABC, so I'm not totally, I mean, that's though instead of no array bounds check, so that's a lot of typing, but foreign library, screw it. So we're going to say foreign library stb image, right? And so that's just going to tell the compiler, like, look, when you go to link this, get that library, right? So we're going to make this work for stb image, and then we're going to go back here to this function, and we're going to do it for all of these, right? So that the make lib string then won't be doing any special cases. It'll just look over the list of registered foreign libraries and just concatenate those to this string. That's the goal. We'll see if that battle plan survives contact with the enemy. Any questions about that plan so far? Anyone, anyone? I'm going to take a quick break while I wait for questions. Is the text hard to read? You know, here's the thing, is I used to do the streams at much lower resolution, but it kind of cramps my style. It makes it hard to program when I can't see that much on the screen. So this is the resolution I natively program at when I'm in the office. And then it's being downscaled. So this is like 3800 by something, right? And I'm streaming at 1920. But when I play it on YouTube at 1080p resolution, it's readable. So the question is, how many people out there find this readable? I could upscale my font if we have to, but I don't know. What do people think? Okay, people are saying it's readable. Other people are saying it's hardly readable. Let's bump it up a little bit just to help people out who might not be able to. I assume that source quality should be doable because this isn't like a highly fast animating stream, right? It's still text on the screen most of the time. But let's try it. Let's go into my .emacs and find where the hell my font size is, which I don't. Is this really? I thought I. All right. Let's see if this even works. All right, that's kind of ugly, but it's bigger. What do people think about this? This will take me time to get used to, but. Good? Let me see how that looks. I'm on high watching on my laptop here on the side. You know, on high, it's still blurry. Like I'm not, high is blurry enough that it's annoying to me. Let me just switch to source. Still switching. Source is better. Like I feel like this isn't going to help that much for people watching on high, but. All right, let's just keep it at 16 here. So any questions about what we're actually doing today? Anyone? Bueller? This is going to cramp my style a bit because I can't see as much code, but it's probably fine. probably fine. People are saying I could go a little lower now. People agree? Can I go lower? What is the dumbed down version of what I'm doing? We're adding the ability to play compressed audio to the standard library of this programming language by interfacing with external code that other people have written. And in the process, we're adding a little bit more infrastructure to make that cleaner so that we don't have to have these stupid hacks to do stuff like that. Oh, people are saying lower. All right, we're going to go to 14. All right. That feels comfortable to me. That's not too big. Okay. So I got to go into the parser now and add a directive. So there are a couple places where I parse this foreign directive, but the main one is at top level. Oh no, I don't parse it there. Never mind. Right, foreign is only valid in a couple of non-top level contexts. So I need to find a directive like import. Right. So here I go. At the top level, if I ever get a hash character, then I know it's a directive, and then I start parsing. So I sort of read an identifier, and then I look at the name of the identifier, and I say, well, what is it? And this is probably not the fastest way to do this, but again, it hasn't become a speed problem yet, so I don't optimize it. I just say, hey, what are the names of these directives? Or what's the name of the directive? And I'm comparing it against all of these options. And when I first did this, I was being a little bit anal and saying Unicode strings match, but that's kind of verbose for me. I think we can just use strings match without that. So for example, import is a directive that does exactly what we want. The format is, I'll show you an import, right? So in print, for example, it'll import basic if you haven't already, right? And so the format is just the directive and then a string, and that's what we want too, right? We want to be able to say, foreign lib or foreign library, whatever. Same thing. So I'm just going to paste this. I'm going to say foreign library, right? And then what do? Well, let's skip this making import directive thing. I have this thing called an import directive for the case of import that I make and then construct, and I make a string literal out of the other thing, and then I add it to this list of directives. And the reason I add it to some list of directives is because imports can be very heavy duty. They can add many files to your project to be compiled, and then we want to go visit those compiles one at a time. It can cause a lot of work to happen that we don't want to happen right now, right? I mean, it's a little bit similar with foreign library. Like we're gonna put the name of the library into a list somewhere, but it's a much lighter weight operation because all we're gonna want to do later is pop the names off that list and put them in that compile or the link string, right? So we're not gonna make a new data structure for that. We're not gonna make a directive. We're gonna, however, we're gonna say auto. We're going to parse the expression after the import or after the foreign library, right? So that's hopefully a string. If it's not a string, we'll just give an error, right? And that's a very user-friendly thing because you can report a readable error message, right? So Now, if expression is null, that means we got a compile error, so we can just bail out because somebody else reported an error for us. Otherwise, I'm not sure that this casting is okay. This code may be very old. So I'm going to make a note to clean this up later. It is presumptuous to assume that what came after the import is a literal. So I should have a utility function that does this cast and complains appropriately if the value can't be cast. So for now, I'm going to say presumptuous. We are casting before we check that it is a literal in the line below. Dangerous if someone modifies this unknowingly. So, when I'm trying to get something done, sometimes I'll put things in like this for myself to clean it up later. Only do this kind of thing if you're really the type of person to go back and clean it up later. Sometimes people don't do that, and then their code becomes messier and messier. What I'm saying here is like, hey, we probably need to do this in a cleaner way. And usually, before too long, I do go back and make things clean. But I like to get things done one at a time and not like rat hole from one branch onto another branch onto another branch. So value after foreign library must be a string literal. So we'll complain. And then if we don't complain, then we'll say we'll add foreign library literal string value. So let's look at the So when we parse a literal in a language is, something like it's a value that you type directly into the code. That's what literal means. So something like an integer or a floating point number or a string. So I've got this structure that just holds any of those things. It's in this common hierarchy of stuff called AST. And if we get back a literal that's a string, then this value type will be literal string here. And we'll have this new string thing called new string value that tells us what it is, right? And so I am just going to, I'm going to call a function called toCstring. A new string is what I use natively in the language now. It's a combination of a 64-bit pointer to string data and then a 64-bit length. So it's not a zero-terminated string. And in C, usually you want to use zero-terminated strings, and so there tends to be this boundary back and forth if you're writing C code. So now in reality, I should probably, back in this file, right, where I'm trying to remove this stuff, the reason I want a C string is because this concatenator thing, which is just a utility class that I have for concatenating strings together, wants a C string. Although, actually, see, it's better to get away from C strings as much as you can because they're buggy and error prone, and they're not great. You tend to spend time doing string lengths and things like that. But let's look at this because I think I might. This is the declaration for that, and it has a bunch of adds and a printf. I have this add non-zero terminated thing. So I can just do that. Do I open an attack vector? Like anytime you're going to concatenate something, onto a command line, you should sanitize it first, which I'm not doing anyway. So I'm going to add a comment here. This is going to be relevant later when we insert this in, but actually we'll do it now. Do it now. Robustness, we should sanitize these strings because they come from arbitrary user code before passing them on the command line. And the reason you want to do that is because anytime you pass something to a command line, God only knows what it is, right? People can like quote, you know, commands that like delete files and crap, right? In the long term, we're not planning on running a command line in the same way, right? We're planning on generating our own code. So before we ever even fix this, we might make this no longer be a concern by the fact that we don't run a command line anymore. But for now, we are running a command line. It's something you should think about. Okay, so I'm going to do a thing where I say for interp code manager foreign library names. This is just a macro that does a C++ 11 style for loop and assigns the name it to each one of these guys. It's not that much more shorthand than what you already can do, but so maybe it's not worth it, but whatever. I'm just used to using a macro for for at this point, and I'm getting the hell out of C++. So I don't tend to sweat small improvements like that. Okay, so for every one of those things, so first I'm going to add to this concatenator, and then I'm going to say c.add no zero term, it.data, what were the parameters of that? Yeah, so I cast the data to char star, which I think it's void pointer already. It dot count. I'm not even sure the member is called data. Anyway, so I'm going to add that to the concatenator, and then I'm going to add a character. I'm going to cast that to char just to make sure. It should be char, but you never. I don't necessarily trust that. Anyway, because this thing concatenates, it'll do, you know, textual data or binary data, which is why it's got all this like caring about how many bytes things are and stuff. Okay, so we're going to do all that, and now we need to make this array of foreign library names, and I'm just going to stick it somewhere. I don't know, just toward the end. Wait, where are my directives? Here we go. So these are all sorts of things that get queued. So I'm going to make another one, array new string, and we're not going to store pointers to new strings. We're just going to pop them in there. Of what do I call it? Foreign library names. Okay, now back in the parser. Now that we've got this, remember we were writing the code for this directive. And instead of saying add foreign library and making a glue function that doesn't really do anything, I'm just going to say foreign library names dot add this, and I'm going to say note, we are not copying the string because we expect it to remain allocated for the life of the compilation, which if someday we make that no longer true, then we would have to copy this string. Oh, Casey's here, and he's asking questions about the variable. Okay. So that's actually the basic sketch. It's a very simple thing, right? If I wasn't talking through it, it would be a very fast thing. So let's just see. I've probably made some mistakes. Oh, this is called new string value, I think. And then source value. Oh, because I copied this before. There is no source value. There's just expression. And then import, right. So this first argument, whenever I report an error, the first argument is the site within the program that the error occurred, because that stores the, the line number and the file name and other context information, and that's how when you report an error, it tells you where the error is. Okay. Hey, so that worked. Hopefully. God, Visual Studio is so slow. It's crazy. Okay. So now let's go back to STB image, right? And now I've added this foreign library directive, and let's see if it parses and runs, right? Undeclared identifier. Ooh, I messed up the parsing somehow. Do I need a semicolon here for some reason? What did I do? No, you know what I didn't do? I didn't eat the frickin' token. That's what I didn't do. Okay, foreign library. Or wait, no, I did. What? What is going on with Emacs? Emacs is freaking me out. Okay, I haven't edited this function for a while. It looks like things should be fine. I'm just going to break there in parsing. I'm going to compile the debug version of the thing, and I'm going to break there in parsing and see what happens. Usually when something like this happens, it's very simple, like I just forgot to do something dumb. Okay, so tests or traveler, like that. And then I'm going to break in foreign, whatever. Parser. Should have done a better search. Okay, so I'm going to break here. Maybe it's just not parsing correctly. Okay, so we found one. Let's check the expression. We found one. Expression file name, expression, exper, line number. So line 4 of STB image, which you will see is exactly where we are. So that's good. We found it. It is not null. We get the literal. Let's look at the literal. It is a literal string. It's got the word STB image in it. So that's all fine. And we add that. Okay. Yeah, I didn't return a result. So usually, when you parse things, you want to return what the expression was. And the value of, it's been so long since I've added a directive. Let's look at who calls parse directive to refresh our memory. So we parse a top level item. Ooh, okay, so here's a loophole or a weird thing. We are, as often happens in a language where you don't have really native error handling, right? I mean, I'm violently opposed to C++ exceptions, right? But so we're actually expecting as a success condition that we return a thing. Now, you know what? It actually, I had said earlier that my first inclination, and in fact the way I did it, was to not make a data structure for this, but for secret reasons that'll become apparent at the next demo, it actually would be a good idea to make a data structure for this. In fact, I was being dumb when I said let's not do that. So let's do it, and then this will work out fine. So this is going to be more involved than we thought, but in a good way. So, right, so for example, here's my directive for import. It's just a simple thing that only has a name, right? We're going to do the same thing. Why did I? Oh, I did this before I had new strings, right? So that's old code. We're not going to rat hole on that right now, but we'll do the new one with a new string. So we'll say new string name, right? And this is annoying, right? Because new string is a struct, but that'll get initialized to the new string version of null. And this is going to be a directive foreign library. So we're going to do this. Whoops, okay. We need to make an import for that. Oh, directive import is 29. We're going to have to make one here. Ask directive foreign library is 40. The reason I'm assigning explicit numbers instead of just using, when you have an enum in C++, it'll increment the number for you. But if you're going to serialize or unserialize or interface with anyone external, then these numbers become part of a protocol, and you don't want them to randomly change, as you insert things. You want the numbers to stay fixed. So it's actually questionable how useful this whole enum thing is, and I might actually take that. It's actually one of the first things I demoed in the very first demo of the language was I showed enums and how they work and how they increment correctly and all that. I may take that feature out because I think it actually encourages bad programming habits. Anyway, so for other secret reasons, I have to edit another place. Where is it? Compiler. Let me just copy this line. And you'll note that I have shadow versions of all these values here for some reason. I'm not going to say why. Watch the next demo to find out why. But this is so that those can be recognized. It's you know what? I want all the directives to be together. So I'm going to make this 37, 38, 39, 40. I'm not actually saving these to any files long term, so it's okay if I change the numbers as long as both sides stay in sync. So we made foreign library 37. All right, someone check and make sure I didn't goof. But there we go. Now that we've added a new data type, there's going to be several parts of the compiler that need to be added to understand the data. This is a much bigger undertaking, but it's going to be worth it. I'll show in the demo why it's going to be worth it. Let me make a private note that you can't see about what I should add to the demo. Okay. So let's go back to Parser now, to the thing that we were doing where we said foreign library, right? And before I said we're not going to make one of these directives, but actually we are. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say dir is directive foreign library, right? And result is equal to dir, so that's what we're going to return from our function. And I'm going to say, I'm going to still do all this as before. I'm going to get the literal. Instead of adding names, I'm going to add foreign libraries. I'm just going to change it. Because again, anytime you have a bigger data structure, you have the opportunity for more context. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add the directive, right? And I'm going to say dir name equals literal new string value, right? So then when we fall out of this if statement cascade, we will return results. Okay. So now I have to change what I just did. This is not unusual, by the way, where I do something and then think better of it and change everything I just typed. It's better to do that now than later. If you change your mind, if you realize as soon as you're doing something like, oh, it would be better if, often it's better to bite the bullet than to live with code that isn't as good as you want it. All right, so this is going to be another set of directives. Ask directive foreign library. Right, and then in this file, right? Remember we were iterating over those strings. Did I change the name of the variable? Foreign libraries, is that what I said in Parser? Yes. Okay. So new string s equals it name, and then this is going to be s data or s dot data s dot count. All right. So that's something. Now, even if this compiles right now, it's not going to run yet because I added a whole new data type to the language, which is a bigger undertaking than just what we were doing. So I'll show you what happens now. In fact, we'll run in debug build because I know the compiler is going to assert. So I added a data type that later parts don't even understand. And so we're going to have to add several things to the compiler now. Oh, here's where let's just make sure that all this worked, right? All right, so we made our directive, and let's just look at that in the debugger, and it works, but here we go. It's a foreign library directive, and it's got a name, and that name is std image. So that's all good. Unfortunately, watch what happens if I keep running. Oh, okay. Maybe it worked. Maybe I didn't happen to trigger anything bad. I don't know. I was expecting to hit an assert there. Okay, so that actually worked. That went all the way through the compiler, which surprises me, but I got something wrong. So I'm not echoing the compiler line, but basically I forgot to put .dll after the name, or .lib, right? So if you look up here, I'm taking whatever name, and I'm putting the import dir and the lib, right? So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to say c.add or c.printf. Did I call it printf? Yeah. So printf %s slash, right, comma, import dir, right? Then I'm going to add that non-zero terminated length bounded name, and then I'm going to add .dll. Using printf for that is overkill, but whatever. Redeclaration of dir. Other declaration is here. Oh, this is scary. Wait, what? Am I loading? Okay, this is a really bananas error. This would seem to indicate that I'm loading a file twice. Somehow. Which I didn't seem to modify any of that code. I mean, I was cutting and pasting from the import code. This is a weird bug. So you'll see, here I define this global variable, and in theory, the compiler prevents loading files twice. So what the hell is happening? What the hell is happening? I don't know. Let me make sure. Yeah, so we're only building the release build, so we're not doing multiple builds. Oh, that's a spoiler for the next demo. What do we do? Let me take a bite of a cupcake while I think about this, because this is really an out of left field error that I didn't expect to get. I have no idea why this is happening. Hopefully it'll be simple. I should have some kind of no mute policy day where I just eat cupcakes without muting the mic. Actually, am I even using this mic? I might be using that one, for all I know. Am I not muting? Let me see what happens if I mute. Hello, hello? Yeah, I'm not muting. Haha. What? I don't even need this. It's because, you know, I had all my things were moved around for a while. So I'm using the webcam now. So hopefully you could hear that, but it wasn't too up close and personal. Okay, before I try to debug this, are there any questions about what the hell I'm doing so far? Anyone? Don't I need to normalize the path? Otherwise, a file could get imported under different names, also symlinks. I actually, what do I think about that? I'm not convinced if that kind of problem happens in a well-formed project. If it does, like the thing that you could do is have an OS-specific backend where it's like, give me the inode of this file, right? Or some kind of operating system specific indicator of the file. Because normalizing the path is stupid, right? Because you're not really making sure you have one canonical thing. You're doing all this crazy work that's bug prone to, like, you know, maybe make sure that you didn't get the same thing twice, but it's the wrong way to do it, right? What you should do is ask the operating system, what resource is this? Because the operating system is the thing that canonically knows what that file format means, right? So you ask the operating system, what resource is this? And then you compare, right? That's the right way to do it. I'm not doing that now because I don't care enough about issues at that level. I mean, that's probably important later when you're trying to be production hardened. But right now I'm just trying to get features in, right? And I've still got weird crap like this happening. So this is the kind of problem level that I'm dealing with. But yes, you may want to be more important about, or more careful about not loading things twice. For now, I just sort of presume that, you know, because the user sets the import folder and the user sets the name of the file, it's sort of up to them to not do that ambiguously right now. However, maybe if you're loading lots of libraries, different library authors do that differently. Like that could be a possibility that could arise. I don't know. Yes, it is saying that the other declaration is at the exact same location. And what that means to me is that for some reason it's loading the file twice, which should be an impossibility. Now, I'm pretty sure that's my error. That looks like my error. It doesn't look like a C++ error. So I just want to break in that and see what the hell is going on. Because I'm mystified as to why that would frickin' happen. And we didn't get that. What? Invalid or corrupt file? Cannot read? Ah, what? I hope my SSD isn't dying on me. Okay, oh, you know what? That's not, okay, so I probably just didn't recompile the compiler when I thought I did, and that's why I got that other error. which is good. Here, I'm not sure why it doesn't like the, oh, because I said .lib up here and then I typed .dll. Hopefully somebody caught that. So whereas a DLL is the thing that you load, the thing that you put on the line to the compiler is .lib. It's a stupid complication that these operating systems have. You should just be able to specify the DLL itself and have only one file, and the compiler is smart enough to, like, you know, use that to link, to have the information to link to itself later, but that's not how it works. You have a .lib that specifies stubs for the DLL. It's a stupid complication that should not exist. Everybody who makes operating systems is fired. That's both Unix OSs and Windows. Okay, it worked. We compiled, and let's print out the lib string, actually, just so we can show that that worked. I must emphasize again that every time I compile this, it takes a while. Almost all of that time is Visual C++. Actually, since I'm running the debug build right now, maybe a little more than usual is me, but it's mostly Visual C++. All right, so when I run the compiler, here I can uncomment this line that shows the command line. All right, for normal demos, I leave that out because it's spammy. Okay. Actually, it does look like I'm taking a while to get there. I wonder why that is. We'll compile the release build in a sec. Anyway, so you can see here, we've got stpimage.lib. And if I go to stpimage right now and change this to like that, well, let's not put semicolons in our string, just because again, we're not sanitizing it. So here you see I got all that garbage on the command line. So our thing about going end to end is working great. So now I can remove those ugly hacks. But first, let's run the game. Oh, oh. Oh, I need to pull it. There we go. All right. Oh, shield. All right, that's good action. Oh, except I wanted that. See, I don't graphically draw them bouncing up, but your pickups bounce off your shield, and you don't get them when the shield is up, which means I couldn't get that fork shot that I wanted, and my current fork shot ran out. Oh, there's one. Okay, and I'm going to need that for the coming Great War in 10 seconds here. Oh god, if I hit this guy. Alright. Oh, shield, this is perfect. Awesome. Oh wait, no, this isn't the hairy level, it's the next one that's the hairy level. Alright. Oh, I'm out. Oh god, I need some pickups. Please. Please. No! Oh, I need it, I need it! Oh god! This is so bad. Oh, oh! Oh! Alright, 62. That's not too bad. 62 is alright. About to clean up ugly hacks. Okay, so now, as I mentioned, let's go back here, and corresponding to that STB image hack, I had all these other ugly hacks for basic and GL, and we already commented out the STB image one, but for the mixer and free type, and we're using all of those libraries in this, right? So now I'm gonna recompile the compiler, and let's go to release build now. Generating code. So we're going to release build of the compiler. You notice it's complaining about a lot of functions now because we're not linking the appropriate libraries anymore. So I'm going to go in one by one and add this directive now. right? So I'm going to say foreign library, and I'm going to put that in my Emacs cut buffer because I'm going to use it, but this one's basic, right? And then let's go into GL, right? So for these, I've built DLLs that interface with these with the same file name, but for some of them I need extras. So for Mixer, right? For Mixer, I actually need one called dsound.dll. Now I'm going to compile again. I still haven't gone and done free type yet, but I just want to make sure that this is working. And now we can see it's complaining about many fewer things, and they're all have FTs in front of them. So let's go to free type. Whoops. Can't type today. And we'll say foreign library, free type 253. And let's make sure we have an updated executable at 3:59 p.m. That's what time it is. I'm not going to play again. Maybe I will. It's just so fun. I mean, it's a simple, stupid game, but it's a good way to celebrate a little bit of functionality victory, right? I think I want to make it like Ikaruga, sort of, except like when you have a shield up, the more you eat bullets, the longer the shield will last. I think that would be cool. That's not totally Ikaruga, but a little bit. Alright. Let's see if I can... I wasn't watching. Alright. 37, not such a good score. All right, are there any questions about what has happened so far? Because now we've, let me delete this. I can delete all this hack. Actually, I can delete all this. I believe, right? Let's try that. It still works, and it still works. So let's commit that. Here's my commit. Okay. Any questions about what we've done? Because the next step is to go add a new library now that we can do that without putting more hacks into the actual compiler to link things, right? We'll be able to just say, hey, load stbimage or stbvorbis.dll. That's the next step. Any chance of hiding the mouse cursor? Yeah, we can do that. It's not the subject of today's broadcast. It's just one Windows call. When there are few enemies, they should get close together. Yeah, whatever. Why? On-topic questions only. Don't ask about how much the witness will cost. That is inappropriate. Inappropriate. Wait, I want to see. Casey said something about implementing a ray tracer. Streaming Witcher 3. I can't do any kind of serious handmade hero style right now because I have a real job that involves shipping a very big game that we have to get done in a very short amount of time. So not in the near future, maybe sometime. Arcade style high scores will come after the bonus round. All right, so let's add this, right? So we're making a new file for this module stbvorbis, and we're going to say foreign lib stbvorbis. Now, I guess what I'm going to do, rather than try to dump this directly into the sample game, I'm going to make even a very simple blank new program that's going to use this library. Ask new is it's just a front end to an arena allocator that allocates the memory and then sets the type tag and calls the constructor on it because I initialize scalar values on the constructor. It is a custom allocator. It's a very simple custom allocator. Okay. Good luck learning C, dude who's learning C for the first time. All right, so I'm going to make a file in tests called, do I have one called simple? No. All right, so simple is going to import basic and import print so I can print stuff out. And it's going to import stb Vorbis. And we're just going to load a Vorbis file and get the information about it. We're not going to try to play it yet because once we get to that point that we actually want to play the data, we've got a bunch of other work to do because I don't just want to play it in one linear dump. Although I could, I could maybe do that as in the sample game. That might be a reasonable next step to take. We'll see. First, we got to interface properly with this library that doesn't even exist yet. So we're going to import that. We're going to say main does something. We got to make it a hello sailor. Hello Vorbis sailor, right? And then run main. Okay, so that's our whole program. We're just going to run this in bytecode right now because it saves us from having a separate cycle to compile and then run. We'll just run. So I'm going to, and you know what? I'm going to copy the compiler to here. So I can just say that. Oh, I already tried to abbreviate it. Foreign lib, rarity. I think someone's caught that on stream and I didn't understand his comment. Okay, so there we go. Simple. It says hello Vorbis sailor. Oh, you know what? Now that we know this is working, I'm going to comment out this running C compiler. I'm also going to comment out this workspace stuff. So workspace %d. You'll figure out what that is if you watch the next stream. And then we'll go to here and re-comment out this. So we'll have less noisy output. All right. Oh, because I didn't copy the compiler again. I copied it too soon. All right. Now, interesting factoid, this simple.cpp is printed by the C compiler, and there is no command line option to tell it not to print that. You literally cannot avoid it. The thing I would have to do is like run the C compiler in a totally separate somehow console and like pipe the output, but then filter it because sometimes I want to see the output if I'm developing the compiler and there's errors. It's ridiculous. There's no way to make it not print simple.cpp. Okay. Let me see what's happening in the chat. Okay. Well, let us then, we're going to need a Vorbis file. Let's go back to Braid. I could put the commando in a Vorbis file, but let's do some separate music just to show that it's working. Data, music. Which one of these do we want to play? We could do Minam again, but it starts out slow. Do Downstream, but too many people like that song. How about this? Let's do that. That's nice. All right. So I'm going to copy this to here. Boom, I'm just going to dump it right there. So now I want to load that file. So let's look at the STB Vorbis API and go for the very simplest possible thing. He's got some interface. You can define this no standard IO thing, but I think that's off by default. Okay. Okay, so this, if I give it a file name, it'll give me back the number of channels, the sample rate, and the output, which sounds like exactly what I want. Okay, so here's what I do. Here's the really ugly process that I do to like get code in, right? Here's the C++ version of the thing, and the types in this language are different, and Sean's using ints, but I happen to know what size ints are, right? So that's the C++ version. So I'm going to say we've got some STB Vorbis decode file name, and it's foreign, and then I just have to translate the arguments. Now, our native strings have lengths to them, so we have to have our file name not be a string in the language, it's a pointer to U8, right? Channels is a pointer to S32. Sample rate is a pointer to S32, right? Signed 32-bit int. And output is pointer to signed 16-bit, right? Now, I don't know how long the output is. Oh wait, and it returns int. So I assume int is the number of samples. Return value is the number of samples or -1. Okay, so this is all that we need, right? So we return S32. Okay, so now this foreign directive tells us that this function is something that we're interfacing from a DLL, and this DLL is going to provide it. So now let's go back to, oh, my camera is covering the code. Well, now you can see it on the left-hand side. Let me put the camera at the bottom, because that might solve that problem sometimes. I don't know. It always seems like if I put the camera at the bottom, then I have a problem with the camera at the bottom. So who knows? Okay. Anyway, that's all we're doing. So let's make sure. So if I recompile now, I should at least be able to link that function. And I am not. Unable to resolve foreign function. STB Vorbis decode file name. That's interesting. So now we enter a potential rat hole of horribleness of me debugging this. We are, from that last line you saw, we are looking in modules stbvorbis.lib. Dump bin. Does this work on libs? Oh, I gotta give it the right file, modules. Okay, STB Vorbis, decode file name. It has that symbol. So what is happening? Unable to resolve foreign function. Oh, God. Here's what's happening. I did all that work to pass the DLLs to the compiler command line, but I didn't do the work to load them into the runtime. Right? That's a whole separate thing. If you're running in bytecode, it has to come into the runtime of the current process. So actually, let me go back to simple, and if I remove this run, then instead the compiler is going to generate an executable for us. Okay. I don't know Why didn't that work? Oh, it's, yeah, it's because the bytecode needs to be able to resolve a foreign function even if we don't run. So that's good. It's easy to understand that problem. So let's go into, where's this file? FFI.cpp is the part of the compiler that loads foreign things. And again, it has a similar ugly hack, I believe. I forgot all about this one because compilers have a lot of different parts. But so these are all like hard-coded functions where like the compiler is emulating something. You don't get these from a DLL. You get these from the compiler itself. But here we've got our array of libs, and we have this load lib function. Aha, and you can see that I am doing this horribleness here. Now, here's what I'm going to do is, you know, for Windows specifically, a few of these, maybe I'm going to leave hard-coded. But all these other ones, actually, ooh. This might be a little bit more annoying than I thought. I'm going to leave some level of ugly hack just so that we don't get into a big rat hole. But we're going to be less of an ugly hack. Ooh, this could be interesting. I might not try to solve this today. I need to look at when we try to look up. So I'm getting this error message, unable to resolve foreign function. And the question is, when does that happen? Because I'm not sure if I have left in the design of the compiler, left time to process that directive. Let's just set a breakpoint there. We can even do that in release build and see where that happens from. Wait. Why did we not? Let's go into debug build. Okay, unable to resolve foreign function. That's happening. Okay, that's happening in bytecode builder, which is good because that's late in the pipeline. So if I load the DLL at an earlier time in the pipeline, the reason I'm, you know what, the reason I'm not going to do this, I just want to go forward on what we're doing right now. The thing that has to happen is, you know, when we get that directive, we need to load this library into the runtime. But we also need to make a dependency between anyone who might use it, because we need to make sure that that declaration of that other function waits in the pipeline on our DLL till it's loaded. And that is non-trivial, and it's off the topic that I wanted to do today. So you know what? Even though I got rid of the ugly hack on the compiler side, I'm going to maintain the ugly hack here, and I'm just going to add one more, right? And we'll take care of this later. Solving it is going to require a little more rat holing than I want to do today. This is the nature of working on a complicated compiler, though, is you start doing something and there ends up being all these things you got to do, right? And you might look at this kind of thing that I'm doing here and say, oh, that's messy and that's terrible. But I like to do this kind of thing and then clean it up later because it lets me get things done and it keeps morale high. And as long as you actually go clean this stuff up later, then it's fine. It's if you don't clean that stuff up later that you end up producing a low quality product. All right, so let's try this. Because I didn't copy the compiler. Rather than copy the compiler all the time, I'm just going to go back to doing this. It's messier to read, but... All right, so now you note that that worked. It's in tests. So there we go. Now let's go back to running it in bytecode. Now the reason that worked, the whole reason I'm doing this ugly hack is because this happens at startup. So I don't have to make a dependency between the imported DLL and anyone who uses it, because I know the imported DLL is always going to exist, right? Now, this cannot stand once the compiler gets distributed out to people, because they're going to want to use all sorts of external DLLs, and you can't like import all of those via the compiler. So this will have to change eventually. Okay. Anyway, you will note, oh, let's go back to this. So we're running in bytecode now. Okay, and we're compiling, but you know, whatevs. So now let's try calling that function. It was stb vorbis.h. No, stb. Okay, we're going to say stb vorbis decode file name c name. That's going to be something we're going to define in a second. And we're going to go to channels, sample rate, and output. So the annoying thing about interfacing with C is you don't get to use multiple return values, right? If this were native, and you might actually choose to make a slightly nicer native API, but I want to make things as thin as possible, right? So you could have said, you know, this, comma, this, comma, this, right? Because we have multiple return values, but libstb is in C, so we can't do that without writing a wrapper. And I'm not a big fan of wrappers often. Okay, so we're going to say channels is S32 sample. Well, hopefully the syntax still works. I don't use it that often. Output. Right. Okay. Oh, and I didn't do the name, so I'm going to say name is, what was it called? Lullaby set. And I believe that it's just sitting in the top level directory. So as long as I run the program from this directory, we should be able to load it. So I'm going to print num samples is whatever it is. All right. Oh, and I forgot to make CName. CName is 2C string of name. I believe I defined that in BASIC. I'm not sure. Let's find out. Yes. Hey, num samples is rather a lot. So it looks like we successfully loaded. Let's print all the variables just in case. Num samples is that. Channels is that. Sample rate is that. There you go. That is not garbage output. We have 44 kilohertz. That's CD recording rate. And that's 2 channels. And that's how much data there is. And we could print out the samples if we want. Now, that is basically victory for us for the moment. I'm going to pause here again and get more cupcakes, I think. But so you see, I did a lot of like infrastructure work, and I postponed some more infrastructure work. But from the user level, this is really all we did. Is we made a file where we said, hey, there's a foreign library, and here's the function in it that we want to call, and we transliterated from C++ into this. So people ask me sometimes, how do you interface with DLLs? And it's like, you just do this, right? So any DLL that you want to call, you know, you basically, for any function in it, you transcode it into the new language. And as long as you don't mess up the sizes of the arguments or anything, you're fine. Now, the annoying thing is, you know, if the API uses pointers and stuff, then, well, we won't get into that. Like, for now, I'm restricting, to make development easier, I'm restricting myself to 64-bit code only. But you can imagine that if you want to link 32-bit programs under some conditions and 64-bit programs under other conditions, you need to make sure that this stays right. I'm not worrying about that yet, but it's relatively straightforward how to deal with that. Okay, I'm going to make another tea and take a 5-minute voice break, but when I come back, I will take more questions, and then I will start integrating. So far we've just made this simple program, right? But I'm going to integrate this back into the sample game, and I'm going to start just by doing exactly what we did here and decompressing the samples. But then I'm going to move on to doing the page load thing. And that'll be quite an involved thing that I may not actually finish today. We'll see. But okay, short break. I got my beef jerky as well. Okay, are there any questions? I guess I don't need these on if I'm not using the mic until I want to hear sound. Are there any questions about what I've been doing? It occurs to me that actually I can do a pretty reasonable solution to get rid of that stupid hack right now. So I'm going to do that, which is, I don't like introducing ordered dependencies into the language. One of the whole things about this language is that, it doesn't matter where you say things versus where you use them and stuff. But I think I can make a short-term exception where if I load this DLL as soon as I parse this, then yeah. Then as long as it's at the top of the file, we don't need to make a dependency, because by the time this could get anywhere, this has already been parsed. Now that in itself is a little bit of an ugly hack, but it's a better ugly hack than the one that we're already doing. And it'll make the code simpler, and it'll mean that I don't have to keep compounding that hack. So I'm going to do it. It'll only take like 10 minutes. And then we'll go on and put the sound in the sample game. Let me see what people have for questions. How hard do you think it would be to implement a network library? It would be easy. It would be just as easy as interfacing with sound and stuff. Like, it's the same thing. I'm scrolling back in the chat. Again, if you address things directly to me, it's easier for me to see them. How could you write a foreign declaration like that if the function took a standard vector reference and the foreign library was in C++? Right now you don't. I don't know if you ever will, because trying to interface with C++ is just garbage. There's not even a standard way to do it, because different compilers have different ABIs. It's a freaking nightmare. Now there are, I believe, compiler authors have done some work to try and commonize things, and maybe in the long term we'll be able to do that. Like, if you want the language to be widely adopted, then maybe you need to do that in the long term. But it's just seems like a miserable task. So in the short term, we're not going to do it. Besides, you would have to, on the local side, construct a data analog of what the standard vector is, which you don't even, it's messy. You don't. Plus, you have to call something vector, which it's not. Like, the people who did C++ didn't even know what a vector is. It's so painful. Kill me now. Yeah, that is the sort of thing that's being postponed for much, much later. I'm glad you liked Braid. Yes, I'm standing. I do like standing desks, but I also think it's good to alternate, so I'm actually going to sit down for a while, because that is what they say is good, and that feels good to me, to alternate the muscles that I'm using. So we're switching to sitting here. Make sure my camera's still in a reasonable place. All right. All right. Okay, so I said let's get rid of that ugly hack, and so let's do that. Oh wait, someone says are hippie design patterns. I don't know what a hippie design pattern is. Sorry. Okay. Now, I said before, it's funny, I'm retracing all my steps. Back when we did this directive for foreign library, and I said, first I said, I'm not going to make a highfalutin data structure, and I did that. And then I said, I'm just going to add it directly to the list, but I'm not going to add it directly to the list anymore. I'm going to make a wrapper. And the reason is because I don't want to load a DLL twice. And I don't know what Windows does if you try to load a DLL twice, but it's reasonable to assume that different operating systems will do different things under that condition. And I don't want to load a DLL twice unless you really, really mean to. Sometimes you might do that because the DLLs have their own state or something. But that would be a specific user-controlled thing. For the purposes of only linking each library once, we want to deduplicate that. And the way we're going to do that is do a similar thing to here. Here we said add directive import, and here we're going to say add directive foreign library instead of adding it directly. And that will just check to see if we have already linked that library. So we'll put that next to add directive. It's in Code Manager. So that's add directive import. So we're going to add directive foreign library, ask directive foreign library lib. And we're going to say for foreign libraries if strings match it name lib name return, otherwise add that to foreign libraries. That's pretty straightforward. I don't remember if I have strings match defined for new string, but maybe. Because this is C++, we have to do this stupid thing where we put the function in the header file as well. And let's, oh, and then I need to forward declare it never ends. Oh wait, maybe I don't need to forward declare anymore because I just gave in and include a global frickin' thing. Okay, this is called dir, and it's not called dir, it's called lib. Import add directive foreign library. Dir. It's called dir for directive. I'm being a little bit inconsistent in my variable naming, but that happens all the time. That's programming. I try to clean it up sometimes when I show a strong preference for one way or another. Okay, so you know what? I actually, because I went to more blobby include files, I don't need, I may not need any of these actually forward declarations. Let me see. Yeah, that compiled. Let me, because Visual Studio is inconsistent about this, let me just do a clean build and make sure that compiles. Okay, so these forward declarations can go away. And have some beef jerky. It's important at this juncture to have beef jerky. Whoever in chat is defending the use of vector, just don't. It's a stupid mistake. They should have known better. They didn't know better. It's a little bit embarrassing, like many things in C++. But it's worse that newer languages are adopting that terminology because it's just bad terminology. So, whatevs. Someone's asking, do I care much about Linux, Mac, and mobile platforms when it comes to games? Well, the thing is, nobody buys games on Linux and Mac. I mean, you know, we get numbers from the places that sell our games. And in general, 4% of the money that you get for a game comes on Mac and 1% comes on Linux. Linux people are very vocal, but it costs more than 1% of your development budget to port a game probably. So you lose money going to Linux, right? Ideologically, it's good. Like, I think we need a free operating system, and especially looking at how badly Microsoft and Apple are trying to screw up their operating systems, I think it's very good that Linux exists. And I wish Linux were a lot better than it is. You know, I've been using Linux since the early 90s, so I've seen it change for a long time, and it's getting worse and worse and more unstable. The software quality is dropping over time. Probably because everybody insists on forking things, and just the philosophy behind Linux. You know, all the things I try and do in the design of this language about minimizing dependencies, about making the compilation process as simple as possible, all that stuff, people in the Linux world don't seem to get that. So like even just trying to build software that somebody else made is a giant exercise in annoyance, much less developing something, right? So it's a bad scene. And don't even mention trying to debug things. There's this horrible Stockholm syndrome on Linux where People think GDB is a good debugger, and when you say Linux doesn't have a good debugger, they get all mad and like, what do you mean GDB is great? No, it's terrible. It's one of the worst debuggers. So it makes me sad, but I'm sort of hoping that in the long term I can contribute to open source ecosystem as a whole, in the sense that, obviously this compiler will be released in some sense, in some license of open source, probably not GPL, probably something freer than GPL. So that's a contribution by itself, but hopefully if I can make a language that people can use to build software without all this horribleness that causes software to be so crappy, maybe we can make a little bit of a jump in the quality of software being built from day to day. If people decide to adopt this and use it, I don't know, we'll see. That's a hope for the future. I don't know anything about the Linux kernel. I'm just talking about all the user programs, which are usually quite bad. I don't think standard vector in C++ is good. I don't use it. I use my own. You'll see, for example, here, if I go to the declaration of this thing for the foreign library, what the hell? Visual C++ totally didn't even get that right. Anyway, I was just going to jump there so I could look at the declaration of this, which is actually back in that file where we just were. So I use my own array type, right? This is an array. This is the equivalent of standard vector in C++, but it's much simpler and much faster to compile, and imposes fewer constraints on your code and all that kind of thing. So I don't use standard vector. I think it's not the right way to go. I'm going to go put the Vive controller back. Okay. Yes, everything is so bad about C++ and GNU and stuff like that. Yes. Someone's asking by freer than GPL. I'm assuming you mean not copyleft. That's not really freer. Yes, it is really freer. GPL software imposes a lot of problems. Like if I'm an indie developer, right, and I want to sell a game that uses a GPL library, I can do that as long as I release the source code to my entire game. Well, LGPL actually is a little different now. But let's take the worst case of like, I want to incorporate some GPL source code directly into the body of my program, which is what I would rather do anyway in most cases, because it reduces the logistics of trying to build things, especially on many platforms, right? So if I do that, now I have to release the source code to my game, which means every shitty iOS pirate person like copies my game and puts out an iOS version of it. And I go out of business, right? But even if that kind of thing doesn't happen, so even, I forget even what the stipulations of LGPL2 are, or is it LGPL3, the new one? I don't even know. But supposedly under most conditions, you can get away with not releasing your own source code, but there are still requirements on me as a developer. And as soon as I adopt that library, I am adopting a legal burden for as long as I distribute this software, which hopefully is decades. And that legal burden costs time and effort and attention and money. Like, I have to make sure every year that I'm complying with whatever the terms are of that license, right? Whereas, if something's in the public domain, or if it's in other similarly free licenses, where if it's just like, look, if you use this, include include acknowledgement in the code, like you need to put a comment in or something that you used our library. Something like that is totally fine because it's a one-time cost. The cost is very small, and it doesn't impose a burden on me for decades into the future. So I find GPL very hostile. I don't like it. I think if you believe in freedom, then really believe in freedom and be free. Don't be like this weird, annoying, try to trap you in some bondage rope trap version of free. I don't think that's a good idea. Though I'm not going to go into a rat hole about why standard vector is bad. Everybody knows why it's bad. There's probably plenty of ranting on YouTube you can look up. I don't know. Look at any optimization thing where they optimize out usages of vector. Okay, let me do a little more real work here. Anyway, to tie off that licensing discussion, when I release the source code to this compiler, I haven't done my reading up on what the new PIP licenses are, but I would probably do something like the BSD license or the MIT license or just straight up public domain, something like that, right? It's not going to be some convoluted thing that forces you to do stuff. I don't like that. I don't think it's appropriate. I think if you're giving something to the world, give it to the world. Anyway, what the hell was I doing? Oh, I was gonna, so I did this add directive import thing, and now let's make sure that that works. Like our old code should still work. And it does. Let's run this too. Oops. Takes a long time to decode that whole Vorbis file. So first, that was our bytecode version, and then that was our executable version, and they both still work, so that's great. Now I'm gonna filter out library. Oh, we're already filtering that. Okay, great. Sorry, I forgot what we did. So now all I have to do is call that linkage thing. So that we haven't done yet. So this is the first time we have encountered this lib. So let's make sure FFI loads it. This is going to annoy me a little bit, honestly, because this order dependency is going to be more severe than I had thought. So I'm going to have to add the dependency later to get rid of the order dependency, but let's just do it for now. The other thing is, I'm going to hard code this modules path for now. I'm not sure if I have it available at this time. If you remember, the thing that we did for the C compiler has the module path available, but I don't remember where it's being stored. And well, okay, let's take a look. Let's see if we can do it right. Anyway, I'm going to make this public. This is FFI Load lib. Whoops. So I'm going to replace load lib with FFI load lib. Whoops. Looks like, yeah. Okay. So then, because I think it's stupid to make header files for little things, I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to paste the prototype. I do this all the time. CNAME is going to be 2C string lib name, which copies the string. I'm going to defer free CNAME, oh, C string, free string. Oh, defer is a macro. I forget oh, I have to put it in braces because it's an ugly macro in C++. Okay. Let's see if that works. I have to declare my C name. Okay, so hopefully this still works. Yeah, I'm compiling release build. Okay, so that still works. Now, the last thing to do is get rid of the ugly hack. Because in theory, we should be loading this later. So let's get rid of stb Vorbis and see what happens. I'm not 100% sure this is going to work. But let's find out. It appears to have worked. And this shouldn't change. Like, the stuff we're doing now is just for bytecode. Okay, now all these things where I declared the module, I should be able to get rid of them. I'm going to leave OpenGL because that's a little bit of an edge case. Well, no, because the glib links OpenGL, so I should be able. I'm not completely sure I can get rid of that, but let's try it. Ooh. Unable to resolve free and malloc in preload. I need to do some rejuggling of things. Okay, yeah. So those are defined in this basic right now, and I don't think I can get rid of that until later. I need to refactor some of my standard library things. Okay, but it worked for everything else. So this is good, because now any new library we have, we don't need to expand this hack. We can leave it where it is. And if I ever go back and make the Linux version current, we can do that. Okay. Great. Any other questions before now we go on and start putting this functionality into the sample game? To do that, I'm going to copy this song into the folder for that game, just so it has its own private copy, because it runs from that folder, it sets its working directory and all that. Looking for questions. I wouldn't say that this language is only for games. I think that games are my primary use case because I think it's a very good way to design a language because it's a very, very hardcore application domain. You have to make sure that you're very versatile and that you're very fast, right? So I think games is good, but this is not necessarily restricted only to games. So for example, another hint at the next demo, we may demo some things that are relevant, for example, to the automotive industry somehow. You might wonder what that could be. This is really, the language is for anyone who's very serious about making programs in a language that's high level, but that also interfaces very efficiently with low level things, and that lets you write low level code, and that is very auditable and checkable and helps you make sure your programs are correct in a different way than some other languages try to do that. So like Rust tries to help you make sure your language is correct in a certain way, and we do something different. How does the defer macro work? It's just something somebody tweeted at me at one point, and I was like, okay, we'll do that way. I used to make classes by hand. Like, you can make a class and then put a thing in the destructor that executes code, and I used to type that by hand every time, but someone said, hey, do this. And I'm like, all right. So this is basically, you know, it makes a class, but it's templated and you sort of jam in the code that you want to happen. This is really ugly crap. You know, it uses a lambda here. And then the thing in braces ends up being the body of the lambda, right? Which is why you need the braces. Stereo panning is already implemented. 8.1 is already implemented. I said that last time, and I said that at the beginning of this time. So if anyone else shows up late and asks, I'm going to ignore the question. We already do frickin' 8.1 panning. We don't need more than that. Have I ever thought about dumping C++ and going back to plain C? I would think about it a little bit, but no, I think the way is forward and not back. Forward. Do I think there are types of projects where GPL copy left is mostly beneficial? No, not really. I don't think so. It's no problem. But yeah, I'm always in favor of simplicity. The simpler the licenses, the better. Because the last thing I'm doing when I'm trying to build a very complicated system is to now also have to weigh all the complications of all the licenses I'm using. Because then I'm using 17 components, all with different licenses. I don't need that, right? I want to use things that are simple. I want to limit the number of things I have to think about. And so maximally permissive licenses do that. Is 12.1 a thing? I guess it probably is. We only do 8.1 right now, sorry. Let me actually say one more thing about the GPL thing. I understand why GPL is what it is. It's because there's an ideological foundation there that wants free software to be strong. But I think if you want free software to be strong and to win, you have to make it as radically simple and radically effective as possible. It has to be so much better than the alternatives that people want to use it and happily use it, right? And the way you do that, you don't force them to do certain things. You make it as simple and enjoyable as possible to use the software. And this is something that the open source community doesn't understand at all. They don't understand user factors of someone trying to use your code because it's very painful to use almost all open source code ever written. Part of that is due to the systems that they're dealing with, but part of it is just the creators not understanding what it means to put something in the world for people to use. So anyway, that's my stance on that. And yes, if you release open source software, there are going to be some people who take it and use it for scummy purposes that are at cross purposes with what your ideal is. But that's fine. That's the cost you pay for making something radically effective. And I believe that in the end, the radically effective, radically simple thing will win anyway, even taking into account those costs. So simple, 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 maximally permissive license. Okay. Now, let's do some more programming. I'm going to go into invaders here, and I'm going to add, might as well put this up here. I put that at the bottom before just to be fancy. I'm going to add stb Vorbis. And let's just compile with that in there because ooh. Yeah, so like I said, I wasn't completely sure that my loading hack was going to work. Oh. This is Windows specific. Okay, so that fixed it. I just had to load GL. I'm assuming that everything is in modules right now. I'm just going to hack it. I'm going to find my OpenGL32.lib. Oh, I have it. It's just in a different folder. It's in GL. No. Oh, it's installed in Windows, right? So where is it? It's in. I mean, this is really ugly. Probably shouldn't do this, but Windows System 32, right? Is it here? OpenGL32.dll. Where's the lib? Where's the lib? Oh, it's probably installed with Visual Studio somewhere. Oh, no, wait, I need the DLL, not the lib, right? Okay, hold on. Do I really? So a thing I could do is change the directive. Rather than do a stupid hack here, I could change the directive so that you could specify. How would I do that? Because right now, okay, so right now I'm assuming that everything, you know what, I'm gonna postpone this till later. I'm gonna say for now, this foreign library directive is only for user installed libraries. And I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go back to my stupid hacks for just basic and GL like I had. So it's one tiny step backwards, but I think that's better than adding more technical debt of more weird hacks. So where did I do that linkage? What? I'm going crazy. All right, it was here. I'm just going to add OpenGL to this for now because it's a system library, and we'll deal with that later. And similarly, oh wait, how was I managing the, because GL links OpenGL32. Yeah, all right, so that's just going to be my way of dealing with this in the short term. Rather than add another hack, we'll just do a small thing that, because we know we're going to clean this up later, and it doesn't add structural complexity to anything. All right. So game's still working. Now, let me then copy what we did in the simple thing. Right? We had all this code that talks to STB. Wait, did I already import that? I did. So we're going to do that, and we're going to go to invaders, and we're going to find the commando theme. How am I going to do this? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make an overload because we have function overloading now. Let me paste this stuff in here for a second, just so I remember. So I'm going to make play sound, get this thing from the sound catalog, and then it's going to call an overload. So return play sound data perturb right? And I'm going to have this overload of play sound. Oh, I got to pass the manager. Okay, so ooh, what about the name? Do I store name and sound data? Where do I put sound data right now? No, it's not there. Eventually, this will probably be factored into its own thing. It's sort of an engine level concept, so I'm not sure what to do with it yet. But here's our sound data. It does have a name, so copy string data.name. All right. So any way that we get a sound data, we can do that. So now I'm going to say, well, having done that factorization, let's just make sure that compiles. No. Oh, because of this. All right. Make sure that compiles. Okay. Having done that, I think I'm actually going to do this a little differently. And I'm going to have the sound catalog is the thing that loads this. And I'm just going to say is og. Eventually, we will... actually, let's pass an extension here. In fact, we don't need to say that's a string, right? We can just do that. Okay, that still compiles, thankfully. Anytime I do something like this, there's a possibility I've broken something in the compiler since last time I did it. Okay, so so actually the sound catalog is going to take the extension, right? So if extension is equal to wave or extension is false, then we load a wave file. Else, if extension is equal to og, we load an og file. Else, assert false for now. Print unknown extension in find or load. Right? So the nice thing about having strings be a native type is we can just like do this and it's fine. You don't have to treat them in a scary way. So if the extension is og, we're going to say print attempted to load og file, yay us, but we haven't implemented that yet. Just to okay. So now we're not trying to load the og file yet. So if I run this, it's just still playing commando, right? Yeah. In fact, let's turn it up because we're about to change the music. So let's turn it up, man. You guys can hear the music, right? Last time I had some weird problem, but I hope the game sound level is coming across. Okay. Okay, good. So now what we're going to do, let's actually test that it loads a wave if we pass that extension wave, right? I can even hear that through my headphones. All right, so that testing of the extension works, which is good, because if you saw the last programming live stream, there was actually a bug related to implicit coerced to bool. I fixed it, which is why I was able to say bang extension here, and that works. And this way, there was a bug that would have made that not work last time. You know what I mean if you were here last time. Okay, so now we're gonna do this. Instead of playing commando, we're gonna play sound of lullaby set with the extension og, and that should fail with an assert when we try to run it because we haven't implemented it. But we should get our print statement. Wait, did I not? Okay, we got our print. Did I change assert in this program to something? Oh no, I just didn't put the assert. Okay, fine. Whatever. We at least we know that we got to the right code path, so that's fine. So now we just need to implement that. So let's do this. We know that the extension is og, but we'll go ahead and do it full og name sprint percent dot. We could just paste in the extension, but if it's uppercase or something, we might want to canonicalize to lowercase. I don't know. I don't know, man. So we're going to do that with the name defer free og name dot data. But you know what? And we're also going to say C og name, because remember, Vorbis library being in C wants C0 terminated strings. So we take a little inefficiency hit here, which if we wanted to be efficient, we wouldn't be doing this in the first place. We'd do some 0 terminated string construction special thing, but I'm being lazy today. So we say C og name is to C string og name defer free C og name. And then we say all this stuff that we did. But we're still going to return null. We're going to print out our result. See what happens. That finished way too fast. Num samples is -1. Why was it -1? Let's say the name. Wait, og name. I didn't, okay, this should be og name. I hope someone caught that. Hope someone caught that. Now it's loading because it's taken forever to decompress the whole og, which is why we will do the work later. There we go. Okay, so you'll note there's no music playing now. And the reason is, because even though we did all this work and waited all this time to decompress this big audio file, we're not returning it. So now we got to return it. We got to fill out a sound data. I'll go to the wave load library for a second. Just so you can see, I have this wave file where I get the wave header into this wave format X thing, blah, blah, blah. And then what do? I make a sound catalog entry. Oh, I return a sound data from load wave file. So load. Oh, load wave file is here, actually. I haven't promoted that to library. So here's the code, right? Load wave file, it reads the entire file as a binary. It gets the header, and then it copies data from that wave format into a more general sound data structure, which is sort of the language that our engine or whatever it's going to be uses to talk about this stuff. So we're going to do that same thing. I'm just going to paste it in here. Now, remember, this is deduplicated, by the way. We're not going to load something more than once because up here we check to see if we already loaded it, right? So let me just point that out. So the base name here is just name. The buffer is samples or output. I feel like that's the wrong type. Result. We'll see. I feel like I'm going to need to cast this probably. Samples is going to be output also. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. We're going to need to construct an array because Sean is giving us back a C-style pointer and length, and I think some of these things are arrays. So let me see. Where is it? Yeah. So that we can do array bounds checking and stuff. Sometimes things are arrays natively. Okay, no, this is just a pointer to sign 16. I didn't make that an array. All right, so we get no bounds checking on that. But that's probably fine. Oh, but buffer is, so buffer is a string. Dot data equals output dot count equals num bytes, and num bytes is the number of samples times channels times 2, well, times the size of S16. You know, we could say size of output sub 0, but I might change this to a char star or a void pointer later. Or also, my current size of only takes type expressions right now. It doesn't take other expressions and take the type of them implicitly yet. And I'm not sure that I want that to be how it works. I need to think about it. But what that means is my size of doesn't yet track the variable, like if I change it. So this is a little bit must change with type of output. This is the kind of thing, though, as you're designing a language, you should notice when this happens and think, oh, okay, I need to do something about that. Anyway, so we're copying the sound data and num samples times channels sampling rates. Maybe I need to do some more casts. We'll see. Signed versus unsigned, line 191. Yeah. So this is a pointer to U8 for some reason. I don't know why. Oh, because it's a string, right? A string is sort of an easy way, like anytime I have a buffer, I just make that a string. Because a string is just a length plus a pointer to data. And rather than make some other buffer type, it seems reasonable to just think like, oh, a string is a bag of binary data. I don't know if I'll keep with that convention, but it seems fine. All right, so if I've done everything right, then maybe music might play. Let's see. Maybe we'll crash horribly. Suspense. Oh yeah. This is the perfect music for this game. Oh! My shield ran out right then. I was trying to go through the bullet. Okay, so that is... Any further questions before I go on and start doing the next thing? The next thing is going to be messy and hairy enough that I may not finish it tonight. It's going to be about, instead of loading that whole thing at once, it's going to be about breaking it into pages and all that. But questions? Oh, someone's asking, what if I have a wave and an og with the same name? Would they not be deduplicated? Well, it depends on your particular game and how you're doing things, what you want to happen in that case. In the witness, I believe we actually detect that and complain because it's usually not a situation that you want. Like you usually want to refer to an asset in your game with just a short name and not care about the format. So for example, maybe you want it to be a wave for a while and then you change it to og or something. So you don't want your program to have to care if it's wave or og, right? So here I did specify at the user level what the extension is. But in reality, what will happen later is this will move further down the stack. So what will happen is the sound catalog will have a set of all the known extensions that it knows are sounds and maybe all the places in the file system where it knows to look for sounds. And when you would just request this without the extension, and it'll go and say what files match this base name and what extension are they, and then it'll know it's an og, and then it'll know how to load an og, right? That's what the witness does, that's what Braid does, in different ways they do them. We'll probably do that here, but to keep things simple for now, so I don't just do everything at once, we just do this. Someone's saying, I'm making 2 C strings on og load, not freeing the second one. I'm not sure I know what you're talking about. What is it called? Oh, yeah. I don't know why I didn't type that, but I didn't. But you know what? Well, yeah. Yeah. It's all fine. The strings are not length prefixed. They're a struct with a length and a data pointer. So let me show you. It's basically this. A string is this. It's a count and a data pointer. So if you say string in the language, you get this struct, but it's just called type string. Pretty straightforward. So down here, that's all I'm doing is I'm setting the fields of the string explicitly to be the count and the data. If you wanted to, you could make a wrapper that takes these arguments and returns a string. I'm not really usually a fan of wrappers for such tiny, trivial things, though. But do that. Just 6 lines up, you're still turning it into a C string and not using it? What? Am I that fried today? COG name. Oh! Right. Yeah, I don't know what. It's probably because I pasted some other stuff. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that's insidious because your code still runs and you're like, what it runs? What's the problem? All right, let's see. I need to get a shield so I can put my headphones on because I want to get a high score while listening to this song. Where is he? Oh. This is all Space Invader games need very nice piano music, in my opinion. Oh, I need spread shot. I need spread shot, thank you. Oh! I thought I was gonna hit it, and I turned back, but I was way too late. Oh, I turned back into it. It was terrible. Okay. I don't know what an offset operator is. Someone's asking if this language will have offset operators. What does that mean? You mean like pointer offsets? You can do pointer math already. Okay, I'm going to take another voice break for a few minutes. We'll do more questions, and then we'll start on the heavy-duty situation. I might also split the stream when I come back, because I feel like we've been going a couple hours already, and when I go upload to YouTube, it's going to be a giant pain. So, back in a second. I'm going to make my third round of tea. Oh God, someone's talking about how fast GCs are. No, no, GC discussion is banned. Not really, but I don't, it annoys me when I read it. Just know that if you're talking about how good GC is in the chat, and I read the chat, then I will be annoyed, but freedom of speech, whatever. Whatever. Freedom to be dumb. The tea is still going, but I will say 2 milliseconds is a really long time for a game to pause. If we had random 2 millisecond pauses happening during the witness, we would freak. That is forever. It's horrible. And it would force you to have to, we would have to cut down the resolution of our graphics and stuff. We'd have to cut down our triangle count and the number of meshes in order to hit 60 frames per second on the PS4 under those conditions. We would have to cut them down quite a bit. So there are real repercussions to that kind of thing. And that's like, oh, you're hoping that it's only 2 milliseconds. In reality, most GCs are a little more unpredictable than that. But I'm not going to talk about GCs anymore. God, I don't want to get sucked into it. I'm not sure if I accidentally said PlayStation 3. I meant PlayStation 4. There's no PlayStation 3 version of the witness. Anyone who says so you drop a frame, big deal, has never worked in games. Especially in virtual reality, that shit is not acceptable. And in VR, you have even lower frame time. So you probably want to render, for example, on the Vive from Valve and HTC. I'm not sure what the final specs are going to be, but I believe right now it's 100 frames per second rendering. So you have 10 milliseconds, but that's 10 milliseconds not to draw one scene, but two scenes, because you have to do one for each eye. So you basically have 5 milliseconds to draw the scene. So, 2 milliseconds is 40% of your frame time. It's insane, right? You can't, and if you start skipping frames in VR, people get sick. It's like very noticeable. You see, it's horrible. It's a bad scene. So it's very, very, as VR gets big, and I think it will, especially as the technology improves, it's going to be very, very, very important to hit those frame deadlines and to be fast. More important than it ever has been in the history of video games, in fact. And it's been very important already. So if you think it's not important to hit frame deadlines, don't get into games anytime soon. Unless you're making 2D games in Unity or something that don't need to feel professional. Someone's saying Vive is 90 hertz, not 100. But, it's in that neighborhood, right? So you get like 11 milliseconds instead of 10. Anyway. So, I'm going to split the screen.